In Western Australia lies a territory known as the most contaminated place in the Southern Hemisphere. Yet it doesn't look like a radiation disaster zone. For years, authorities have warned that even a brief stay in this area can be dangerous to your health and sometimes fatal. This site was once home to the town of Wittenoom, a fully functional community where families lived, schools and hospitals operated, and people arrived not just for work, but with the intention of building a life. Today, Wittenoom has been stripped of its town status, wiped from the maps, and the roads leading to it are closed. Its existence is recognized as an error that cannot be undone. To understand how and why this happened, we must return to the moment when Wittenoom was considered not a danger, but the ideal place to live and prosper. Following the Second World War, Australia experienced a period of rapid economic growth. The country sought to develop industry, infrastructure, and resource extraction to secure a stable future. Western Australia, despite its harsh climate and remoteness, was seen as a region of immense potential, as it held rich mineral deposits capable of bringing in millions of dollars and thousands of jobs. When the decision was made to develop mining in the Hamersley Ranges, authorities and businesses immediately bet on creating a full-scale town. That is how Wittenoom came into existence. People flocked there from across Australia and abroad, seeking stable work, high wages, and a chance to start fresh. The town grew quickly. Residential districts were built, along with a school, a hospital, shops, and even an airport, with the population reaching 20,000, a major and successful settlement for such a remote region. Residents spent their time like those in any other Australian town of the era, hosting sports competitions, celebrating holidays, raising children, and never doubting they had chosen the right place to live. None of them suspected that this town might one day vanish. The reason for Wittenoom's existence was a mineral that the mid-20th century was considered strategically vital for Australia and the entire industrial world. We are talking about asbestos, a material perceived at the time as almost ideal because it was fireproof, heat-resistant, durable, cheap, and versatile. Asbestos was used in home construction, shipbuilding, industry, and even household appliances. As a result, global demand rose sharply. In Australia, asbestos became a true symbol of the industrial boom, and the deposit in the Wittenoom area was considered one of the richest and most promising, valued more highly than all the gold ever exported from Australia. The deposit was developed by Australian Blue Asbestos, a subsidiary of CSR, Colonial Sugar Refining Company, which originally specialized in sugar processing, but later began actively expanding its operations, investing in industry and resource extraction. By the mid-20th century, once it became clear that Wittenoom held massive asbestos deposits, the company saw an opportunity for enormous profit. From that point on, for CSR's management, the Wittenoom mine seemed like a gold mine, and for years, worker safety remained a secondary concern. The real working conditions in Wittenoom differed greatly from what was described in official reports. Workers labored in constant dust, high temperatures, and poor ventilation, while mine collapses were not uncommon and safety measures were often ignored. Asbestos dust filled every space, settling on skin, clothing, tools, and entering lungs with every breath. Workers were given no serious protection because officially the material was not considered a grave threat. Over time, this dust became part of daily life for the entire town, spreading far beyond the mines, settling on streets, inside homes, and on playgrounds where children played in it. Years after mining began, Wittenoom residents started developing illnesses that couldn't be explained by ordinary causes. People complained of chronic shortness of breath, chest pain, fatigue, and sudden deterioration. Eventually, doctors began recording cases of rare and highly aggressive forms of cancer and tumors. It wasn't just the miners who fell ill, but their wives, children, and even those who never worked directly in production. According to various estimates, more than 1,200 people have officially died from Wittenoom-related diseases, and the real number may be significantly higher. Workers and residents from those years emphasized that they knew nothing. No one told them about the danger they were living in. At that time, Australia had almost no experience in mining and processing asbestos fiber. Only a small number of doctors understood the scale of the danger. One of the first was Dr. Jim McNulty, who studied the health of Wittenoom's residents and discovered an alarming connection between living conditions in the town and fatal diagnoses. He repeatedly sent reports and warnings to the authorities and mine management, pointing to the link between asbestos mining and the development of mesothelioma. McNulty stated plainly that if mining continued, the town would face catastrophe and the number of victims would reach into the hundreds and thousands. But his words were ignored, since acknowledging the problem would have meant shutting down a profitable business. But what exactly was the doctor warning about? The danger of asbestos lies in microscopic fibers that, when inhaled, penetrate deep into the lungs and never leave the body. Over time, these fibers cause chronic inflammation, tissue scarring, and cell mutations, which can lead to asbestosis, lung cancer, and mesothelioma, a rare but almost always fatal type of cancer. The most frightening aspect was that the disease could appear 20 to 40 years later. People would leave Wittenoom, build new lives, and only decades later discover that a death sentence had been planted in their lungs during their years in that town. Despite warnings from the Western Australian Department of Health and other bodies, CSR continued to operate the mine until 1966. After that, mining in Wittenoom was stopped, but the reason for the closure had nothing to do with public health. By this time, alternative materials had appeared on the global market, along with cheaper sources of asbestos in other countries, making mining in remote Western Australia economically unviable. It was falling profits, not the growing number of deaths, that led to the closure of the mines. Even after mining stopped, life in Wittenoom didn't vanish instantly. People continued to walk the same streets, shops remained open, and community events were held. Some residents refused to leave, unwilling to accept that the place where they raised their children had turned out to be deadly. It wasn't until 1979 that an organized relocation began. Eventually, Wittenoom was stripped of its status as a settlement, and the demolition of buildings began. Today, Wittenoom is considered one of the most contaminated places in Australia. Asbestos dust remains dangerous across more than 46,000 hectares, as the wind continues to carry microscopic fibers through the air. Demolition of the remaining structures began in 2023, however. Fully cleaning the region is practically impossible due to the colossal costs involved. Therefore, the authorities limit themselves to warnings, closed roads, and access control. The story of Wittenoom remains a reminder that economic gain can blind people to obvious risks, and the consequences of such decisions can be felt for decades.